From WNYC Radio in New York, I'm Jamie Floyd. Thank you for joining us as we begin a national conversation about how to remedy the sexual harassment, assault, and discrimination crisis in America. It's a special series we're calling Beyond Me Too. This is the first of 4 one-hour programs. The goal is to move us from awareness to action. Tonight, from executive offices to the factory floors to domestic work, this is Beyond Me Too: Women, Men, Power, and Change.
And we begin this morning with the news that has rocked Hollywood the past few days. Accusations of repeated sexual harassment by powerful movie producer Harvey Weinstein. And as of last night, after taking a leave of absence from his company in the wake of these allegations, Weinstein finds himself out of a job.
I just want to make it better for the next girl coming after me, to know that she doesn't have to sell her body and soul just because she wants to be a creative person.
I worked with him once a decade ago, and I was like, this is a bad dude. I'm never going to work with him ever again. I know that people would say to me when I would refuse to work with him, he's old school.
When you go through something as traumatic as sexual violence, there's a way that you close up. Your protection, the way you protect yourself, it's like you're shrouded in shame. But then the subsequent having somebody else connect with you and say, you're not alone in that, it just frees you. It frees you from the shame. To just simply say, me too, is powerful, but it's soft. Me too can be a conversation starter, or it can be the whole conversation.
If you're on any kind of social media, I am sure you've seen the hashtag Me Too. So millions of people have come out posting Me Too. It is not always easy, but we have to do that. And that's why I posted, and I will say it right now out loud, Me Too.
Time's up! Time's up! Time's up! Time's up! Time's up!
From Me Too to Time's Up, it's been just over 100 days since the Harvey Weinstein story broke. It feels like years, but that's it. And it seems no industry or institution is immune. Hollywood, politics, sports, even public media, including WNYC, where 3 hosts were accused of sexual misconduct and bullying. They are gone, but we continue to grapple with what went wrong. Since October and Weinstein, it is almost impossible to keep up with the daily takedown of powerful men and their accusers, let alone the range of behaviors alleged. How do we define sexual harassment versus assault? When does obnoxious behavior cross the line into misconduct? And what about a backlash? How do we get beyond Me Too if we can't even agree upon definitions, hard facts, consequences? Here to help us get there, Professor Suzanne Goldberg. She leads the Center for Gender and Sexuality at Columbia Law School. Welcome, Professor.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
And listeners, if the avalanche of sexual misconduct cases since October has left you wanting some clarity, call us up. 844-745-TALK. That's 844-745-8255. Or you can tweet using the hashtag BeyondMeToo. And Professor, let's wait for those calls to come in and get right to the heart of the legal matter. Every day, there's another story or 2 stories, or even some days 3 stories. So help us understand what we're dealing with on a case-by-case basis. Let's start with the distinction between sexual harassment and assault.
Right. And you're right. There is a lot of conversation about the law, about policy, and most fundamentally about how we treat each other, how we should treat each other, and how people actually treat each other.
Right.
To think about the law, let me say something first about the criminal law. So the criminal law, as most listeners likely know, criminalizes sexual assault, various forms from non-consensual touching to rape, right? And much in between. That's the criminal law. And in those situations, a prosecutor has to prove to a jury that the defendant engaged in this misconduct beyond a reasonable doubt. Setting the criminal law aside, we have civil law, right? That's the kinds of lawsuits people file against one another. So a lawsuit could be filed by somebody who was victimized by Harvey Weinstein against him in a civil court. And
that could intersect. It could be criminal and civil, right? And it could happen in the workplace and be criminal, right? So there's a lot of overlap.
There is a lot of overlap. The exact same conduct could be a violation of criminal law. It could be the basis for a civil lawsuit where a a woman is seeking financial compensation from the defendant, and it can be a violation of company policy. So these areas can overlap, and they're also distinct. Each of them gives a different forum for resolving the complaints.
And the forum is really important. It really very much matters where something happens. And perhaps the best iconic example is the one Anita Hill described. Let's take a listen to that.
After approximately 3 months of working there, he asked me to go out socially with him. I thought that by saying no and explaining my reasons, my employer would abandon his social suggestions. However, to my regret, in the following few weeks, he continued to ask me out. He pressed me to justify my reasons for saying no to him. My working relationship became even more strained when Judge Thomas began to use work situations to discuss sex.
So, Professor Goldberg, Anita Hill was describing things she said Clarence Thomas did to her at work, perhaps not rising to the level of criminality, but work is important, right? Work, the workplace, and perhaps the hostile work environment?
For sure. So there is law, federal law, state law, and local law that prohibits sex discrimination. And courts have interpreted that law to prohibit sexual harassment at work. The reason is that when someone is sexually harassed at work, that interferes with the person's ability to do their work in the same way as everybody else in the workplace. So when Clarence Thomas allegedly made those remarks to Anita Hill, he was interfering with her ability to go about doing her job, right? Having a sexual conversation with your boss is not ordinarily relevant to getting one's work done.
We're going to take a call now from Kimberly. She's in Flagstaff, Arizona. Kimberly, thank you so much for joining us. This is Beyond Me Too, and you are on with Professor Suzanne Goldberg from Columbia University Law School.
Hi, thanks for taking my call, Professor. I have a question. I've debated this with my brothers, and we got in a discussion about what is the difference, what delineates the difference between a woman walking on the sidewalk and getting grabbed on the butt, and that being considered assault if you called the police, but if you walked into your office and went to get something out of the communal kitchen, and one of your colleagues or boss comes up and grabs you also on the butt, and that's sexual harassment. What is that difference, and why is that allowed to be differentiated just because you walked inside a door? Or can it, or is it?
Thank you, Kimberly. Professor.
Yeah, it's a great question. The conduct is the same, and actually it is criminal when somebody grabs your butt without consent. You know, the difference is that when it happens on the street, usually your only recourse is to go through a criminal process, or now to post on various websites about what happened. When it happens at work, you have other avenues. So you can raise it with if it's your boss, you're not probably going to raise it with your boss, but you can raise it with someone at work, whether it's the human resources department or the person above your boss. You can also, if, for that kind of conduct, try to go to court and sue the boss. The difficulty there is that hostile environment law has been interpreted to require that the harassment be severe or pervasive. And there are loads of cases out there involving some pretty horrendous behavior, butt grabbing and much beyond, where employers have gotten off. So it's not necessarily an easy road to go to court, but you're right. You can challenge that conduct in all three of those areas.
And we are going to continue to discuss. Suzanne Goldberg, professor, is going to stay with us. We're going to continue to discuss the range of behaviors. And we are going to next turn our attention from the red carpet to the rest of America as we continue to consider how to get beyond Me Too. Do stay with us. This is our special Beyond Me Too, all this week, starting tonight.